Welcome to Leaders and Learners. My name is Tanya McKenzie, and you can find me at the intersection of public relations and leadership. Join us as we talk to organizational leaders, elected officials, experts, authors, artists, and personalities, sharing their stories, talking about how they got to where they are and how they continue to learn and lead the way. So without further ado, let's get into it. Hey everyone, welcome to another edition of Leaders and Learners, where we all know that the best leaders are lifetime learners. Today, you're going to learn something about life far away from you, but it is something that can definitely affect you if you are not aware and understand how these things happen. So, I'm going to bring to you an artist, an author. She is a stylist. She has made an amazing impact on lives here in the United States. And I don't know. I definitely think you're going to learn something interesting today that you probably didn't even think would affect your life. But if you have a woman in your life, this is definitely something I'm almost sure that she has at least tapped into and know that's going on. And when it happens to some of us, it really happens to all of us. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and bring on Miss Naz Meknat. Hi,
Hi,
how are you?
I'm great. How are you?
I am thrilled to have you here today because I get so excited when my listeners have the opportunity to really learn something that helps them expand as a human. And I think the story that you're going to talk about today is a human story. Not only what's going on in your home country, but kind of how you are moving through life today. I just get so excited when I talk to women that are just so dynamic and creating a path that some probably thought was not even possible. So without further ado, I want you to go ahead and introduce yourself to the people. Let them know where you're from and kind of what's on your heart today, because I think it's kind of heart work that we're
Yes.
going to get into.
Thanks for having me. My name is Naz Meknat. I am a wardrobe stylist in Los Angeles and an author. Um, what's on what's in my heart today is like actually I'm from Iran, and as an Iranian, like every other Iranian, our hearts are very heavy these days, just because there's an uprising going on in Iran by a very, very young generation. And for those who don't know, in 1979, we had a revolution, and the dictatorship, religious leaders took over somehow. And it's been 44 years of oppression, especially for women. And about 2 months ago, a young woman by the name of Mahsa Amini was murdered in the hands of what we call morality police, which is a branch of policing in Iran that patrols the streets and looks for anything that goes against their rules and regulations. The way you dress, the way who you're speaking to. If you are walking down the street with a male figure that's not related to you, that's against the law. You have to be covered and have a hijab on at all times. If your hijab is not properly, placed on your head, and some of your hair is showing, they will arrest you and throw in jail, which is why they arrested Mahsa Amini and they beat her to death. So since mid-September, there has been protests in Iran all over the country every day. There has been a lot of our youth has have been arrested or tortured and killed. So us Iranians outside of Iran are trying to do our part and bring awareness to what's going on and be their voice. So that is what's happening right now.
When you think about being a woman or a young girl in Iran right now, what tugs most at your heart and what tugs most at your mind? Because how we feel isn't necessarily how we'll act. So, talk to me about that.
Yeah. So to be, completely honest, I actually grew up in Iran. I moved to United States when I was 23 years old. So I've had my own fair share of dealing with the morality police, with, the government. I was 13 years old when I was arrested by the morality police. I had my hijab properly on, and the only thing that I was guilty of is I was walking down the sidewalk and I passed by a boy of the same age that was my neighbor in my neighborhood, and we were neighbors, so we just literally just stopped to say hi. And morality police put a gun to my head, handcuffed me, threw me in a van, and took me to jail. So as a 13-year-old, I was really um, traumatized. And from that moment on, I decided that I'm not going to stay silent, and I'm going to speak up, and I'm going to fight back in my own way. And I did, while I, lived there. And I got in a lot of trouble. So my heart really is in pain for the young generation, because this revolution is not something they did. They didn't bring it on themselves. This is a revolution that their parents and grandparents generation brought onto them, not knowing what was going to happen and who was going to take over. So just seeing that these kids who are as young as 9 years old are putting their lives, in danger, going on the street, and they don't have weapons. They are just going on the street protesting and chanting anti-government slogans, and that's a crime in my country. There's no free speech. So, we've had video clips coming out of the country where a young girl is filming the protests and chanting and just going towards these, what we call basijis, or the morality police. And as she's filming, they shoot her, and the phone drops on the floor and goes black. So witnessing these things coming out of Iran right now is just, first of all, it makes me personally, and I know a lot of Iranians that live outside of Iran, very guilty, because I feel like they're so young, they shouldn't risk their lives. It should be the older generation who should take charge. So there's a lot of guilt, there's a lot of sadness that we are all feeling right now. And all I hope is that, these blood, being shed is not going to waste, and it's going to bring on some change.
Now we're gonna get into your book. You recently published a book, and I want you to tell the audience how you were able to process your own experience and be able to pour that into something that you published for public consumption, because that can be tough.
Yes. Honestly, it was writing this book was one of the hardest things I've ever done in my life. So I've been in the United States for 25 years, and I started writing the book about 3 years ago, and that is only because some of my friends and colleagues, when they heard a little bit of my story, they really wanted me to speak about it and talk about it. When the Me Too movement happened, I'm in the entertainment industry, I'm a celebrity stylist. I was in awe of these courageous and brave women who come forward and speak about like everything that's happening, that happened to them, happening in the business. Um, it just made me think. I had a lot of reservations about writing the book because a lot of details of my life, is written in the book. And I promise myself, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to do it right, and I'm going to be truthful, and I'm not going to leave anything out. So it was very hard, but it was actually very therapeutic as well. um, Putting everything down on a paper just made me, all the memories that I've pushed back since I moved here, it made me to actually process that and deal with it. And it gave me the courage and, the push that I needed to become an activist and an advocate for women's rights in, whatever space that is, whether it is, anti-abortion here in America, whether it is, speaking up for my fellow Iranian women and girls in Iran. So whatever shape or form that is, it kind of gave me the permission to be that person and to speak up. And first it started, honestly, the passion started with domestic violence and women who are survivors and victims of domestic violence. And then it just shifted towards, whatever that was that women needed, um, someone to stand up and speak up and be an advocate. So again, anti-abortion, whether it was any women's issue, that just became my passion.
What was the most difficult part of the book for you? For me, I wrote my story. I'm a gun violence survivor and sexual assault survivor twice. Uh, there was the second time it happened was probably the most difficult part for me. And it even kind of stopped me in my tracks, right? You have to relive it, you have to
Yeah.
feel it, you have to engage in it to be able to write about it. What was the most difficult, the hardest part of the book for you? And
Um,
how did you get through that?
the hardest part was speaking about the abuse. So my relationship back home was became a very abusive relationship. My ex-partner became an alcoholic, and the abuse was it came so dangerous that I knew that if I stayed and if I didn't speak up or do anything, because I stayed silent for a while out of shame and guilt that some women feel, because um I don't know why we put that on ourselves, but we do. So, and I was a very young girl. So, because of that shame and guilt, I didn't speak up for a very long time. So, speaking about the abuse and going into details that what took place and, how it was, that was probably the most difficult time, because I had to, as you said, revisit and sit with myself and process it. And, I, got through it by just taking my time. Writing the book took 3 years for me. So I would pause, take my time when I needed it, have a good cry, and step away and get back to it maybe the next day or 30 minutes later, or however much time I needed to take to just take that all in and remember that yes, it was me who went through all this. Because when you're putting it on paper, it almost feels like you're talking about somebody else out there. It's just, especially because it's been 25 years, and you don't want to think about these things. um so yeah, it was probably that was the hardest part. And
Isn't it crazy when even though, like you just said, it was 25 years ago, once you start writing about it again, it's almost like it just happened. In order for
yeah,
you to really do due diligence when you are writing, getting in touch with your feelings and your emotions at that moment, you can actually take yourself back to that moment, right? Like, how
100%.
do you? So here's my question: how do you not get stuck in that moment? Because it is so triggering. That's why you're able to write about it so completely.
Yes.
But that can also take you back to a place where you were stuck and traumatized. So how do you move past the trauma again, knowing that we move on, but that hurt never really goes away?
It doesn't. It's, when something like that happens, when, you experience trauma to that extent, it never really leaves you. And I never went to therapy. So I had to really be my own therapist. I needed to be, my own best friend, because even speaking about it to someone else is just like so hard. You don't want to keep talking about it. Um, what I did is just I had to keep reminding myself where I am right now and the fact that I'm safe, that I'm somewhere, that I have protection. And this was something that actually really pushed me towards advocating for women who are still in, abusive situations and abusive relationships and don't leave. um, that was like the driving force for me to keep talking and to keep speaking about it, that you can get out of it and you can be okay. If you leave, it's not the end of the world. I come from a country that women are uh, like second class citizens, that we have no rights in Iran. Women have zero rights. So you are a property of a man. First your father before marriage. If your father passes, if you have a brother, your brother, or your uncle, and when you get married, your husband. So in a country like that, you can't really go to the police or go anywhere and be like, hey, I'm in an abusive relationship. I'm scared for my life. I need protection. I need, restraining order. It doesn't exist. They laugh at you. They send you back to your abuser. So I really wanted to speak up and speak to women and tell them you have all this, resources here that you can use. And, you shouldn't really stay in relationships like this. So for me, to remind myself that, get out of that mindset was just really look at my scars and look how old my scars were. I'm like, this is not a new scar. This is an old scar. And this is something that happened so long ago. I'm somewhere that I have protection. My abuser cannot reach me. And I've learned my lesson. And I know I would never get in that situation ever again. It gave me comfort that I am in a country that I have rights, and I'm close to my family, and I am old enough and wise enough to know, to recognize relationships like this and never, ever put myself in that situation.
I love it. Debbie Ellickson said, soaking in both your courage for telling your stories, because here I am sitting here still avoiding telling about the dark side of mine. Debbie, I'm going to keep on prying until we do get you to tell your story, because we all know that it's healing. And what you went through is actually for the next person. You've
Yes.
already survived it. So, with that being said, Naz, I would love to know from you what you plan on doing with your book and your experience, how you plan on using it, like really using it. And I'm asking you because I know it was a lot of hard work, but I know a lot of authors that are just okay being an author. Like they're not doing anything with their book, which drives me nuts. What are you going to do with your book? And when can we get you out here in California, in Southern California, to do an event so we can all come touch?
I'm actually in Southern California. I'm based in Los Angeles.
Oh, are you? That's crazy. For some reason, I thought you were in New York. You know, you fancy. That's
No, I'm in Los Angeles.
oh, we definitely have to get together. So yeah, what are you going to do with your book, and when can we hang out?
Anytime I'm here. Anytime we can hang out, and anytime you need me, I'll be there. I'm doing a lot of events right now. Anybody who asks me to come and speak about my experience, I'm to the point that I'm not scared anymore, and I'm not, shy about it. So the book has been out for a year, so people know my story by now. What I'm gonna do with the book, I always say, I have one story to tell. I'm, not my job is not being a writer. I'm not a writer. I'm a stylist. However, I had one story, and that one story was important to tell. And the reason I decided to write this is, I had a friend who, when I was hesitating and I didn't know if I want to, I'm a private person, and I didn't know if I want to put my whole life out there like that. A friend of mine told me, this is way bigger than you. This is not even about you. Just think about that one girl that's in the same situation you were before. And if you got your hands on a book, on a story, on something that resonated with you, and you saw that girl left that situation and survived and thrived, and she's okay now, wouldn't you think that you've left earlier, you've done something about it sooner, instead of staying in this relationship and taking it and getting to a point that you're like, if I don't say anything, I really literally I'm going to be dead tomorrow. My little body cannot take the abuse anymore. um that was a turning point for me, because then it was like, even if I reach one person, I've done my job. So my plan is to keep speaking, to keep talking. I usually say this line a lot. I said, the minute I decided to speak out and talk about what was going on, my whole life changed within 30 minutes, literally within 30 minutes.
Mm.
Um, People are out there, they want to listen, they want to help. So whatever your story is, nothing good comes out of staying silent. You have an obligation, you have a responsibility to speak up for yourself and for other women, for other human beings. And I plan on keep talking about it. Anybody who asks me anything to do with the book, whether it's an event, to I make myself available, because that's my priority.
I love that. At the top of the show, I called you an artist because I feel like as a stylist, you are an artist. It's like living art that
Yes.
you create on a person. Like they are the canvas, you are the artist. When did you get into your artistry, styling?
I was always a very creative child. I'm the youngest of four, and none of my siblings are really in a creative business. I'm the only one who's always been creative. So since I was very young, I was just mesmerized by, film and cinema and the art of TV, and everything that was related to anything creative, poetry, painting, you name it. And fashion was one of them. As I said, we don't have a lot of opportunities back home. Women, especially women, don't have a lot of opportunities back home. So when I came to United States, and I found my place here, and I was comfortable enough to, start my life here, I decided that I'm going to pursue my passion. And I wanted to, go do something with wardrobe. And first I thought I wanted to do, wardrobe for film and TV, which I did for a little while. But then somehow I went to school, I went to college for fashion. So I finished my college and got a degree in fashion. And then, started just working with, did some films, and started getting some celebrity clients, and that just became my job. I enjoyed it so much that I just stayed in the styling business.
What would you consider something that you would never want to be affiliated with? Give me a word that you absolutely detest and would never want to be affiliated with.
Given the time and the events that are going on right now, I think the word that comes to mind is indifferent.
Mm.
I don't want to um, be somebody who, no matter what the problem, the issue is, I don't want to be indifferent. And I was, speaking to someone yesterday, and we were talking about, what's going on in Iran and how we need every ally we can have. So it's not just an Iran issue. It's a humanitarian issue. It's a worldwide issue. So if you have a heartbeat, if you're a human and you see what's going on in Iran, how they are torturing, kidnapping, raping these kids and killing them, there's no way you can stay silent and not say anything. And a couple of years ago, when the Black Lives Matter movement happened, it wasn't something that I sat back and said, that doesn't really concern me, I'm not going to do anything. I did everything I could. I spoke up. I went to, protest, march with, everybody. And I just don't want to be that person who, when there is a big issue, for me, or I was saying, like, I've never needed an abortion. I won't need an abortion, but it doesn't mean that I'm going to sit back and not speak about the issue and, advocate for women who actually need it. So we are all part of the same body. If somebody hurts, we all hurt. So the word is indifferent. I don't ever want to be that person.
What do you think about people that have decided to be indifferent, though, about issues that permeate our society like this?
Honestly, when it comes to like real serious issues that we are talking about, if you're staying silent, that means you agree with the opposite, party. If it's what's going on in my country, for example, if you're just like, it's all the way across the world, it doesn't bother me. That means that you agree with the massacre that's going on. That you're okay with kids being kidnapped, tortured, raped, and killed. So I don't know how you can actually be okay with these big social issues. You don't have to be in politics. It doesn't mean you have to be involved in politics. It shows humanity. It shows compassion. Um, I don't know. I just honestly don't even know what to say to people who just think, you know, this is not their issue. So it's
I applaud you
complicated.
for taking a stand. We talk often in our PR groups about taking a stand, at least having something that you stand for. When you
Something.
stand for nothing, it says a lot about you as a person, about your brand, about who you are. So I 100% agree with what you're saying. I do want to share this with our amazing audience so that they know what the book looks like and to go out and get it if you don't have it already. Talk to me about the cover and how you made the decision to go with this.
So believe it or not, I actually designed the cover myself. I tried to be as involved as I could because nobody really understands your story better than yourself. And this represented to me, as you can see, that both of the girls are me, and one of them is with the hijab, hands in chain, and behind me is the mosque, which represents the forced religion that we were forced to practice. And if we didn't comply, again, we would be imprisoned and killed. And the other one is me in United States with the Statue of Liberty behind me, and that represents freedom. And my chains are broken, and I don't have a hijab, and I'm wearing a color, and I'm showing off, my nail polish and my hair and everything that I couldn't do when I lived in my own country. So it kind of represents how I broke that chain and how I freed myself from the chain that was put on not just me, all the women of Iran.
Yeah, I absolutely appreciate you sharing that with us. And thank you for taking the time today to come on and chat with us. Let the people know how they can keep up with you, follow your journey. If they need your services, get in touch with you because I definitely want to continue to keep this connection. And anytime you have updates or events, you let us know. So let
Of course.
people know.
As far as social media, I'm most active on Instagram. So my handle is Naz _Meknat Meknat. So that's where I really post about whether it's my styling job or whether it is my uh, you know posting about any social issues, my activism, anything that's going on. I usually post it on Instagram. And anybody that wants to see my profile and see my work, it's on my website, which is my first name, last name, newsworthy.com.
I love that. And for you guys, just to let you know, it's all down in the captions. So make sure that you follow, you support, and you stay connected. Naz, thank you so much for joining us. I
Thank you.
appreciate you. Um, we have a mutual friend. We talk about you. We're very elated that we are connected and want to continue to support the work that you're doing. So when you have something new and you want to talk about it, or you just want to come talk about it,
Of course.
you're definitely welcome here all the time. So I want to thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. So listen, guys, I try to bring you somebody that helps to educate, expand your mind a bit. I know for a fact that many of you could have used this conversation because you wonder, you hear one thing on the news, you want to know how much of it is embellished or, are they just being extra? No, what's going on in Iran is very serious. And it's definitely going to take many voices of support, some monetary help, and anything else that you can do, writing and blogging and all of the cool things that many of you guys already do. but it is definitely a situation that is not to be ignored, and not to be indifferent about. I really like that she talked about being indifferent. Many times people are afraid to take a stand or show people where they stand on issues. And, I guess my best piece of advice for anybody trying to figure it out is pick something that means something to you, something authentic, that you can stand by at any given moment, something that resonates with who you are. And obviously, for many of us, women's issues are very important. And if you love women, if you have women in your life, you can see how something like this can resonate. So, if it's this or if it's something else that has to do with women or children or the disabled, LGBTQ plus, make sure that you have an issue that you champion that means something and that impacts the world, because we're not in this alone. We are all in this and we are much better together. So thank you guys for showing up for another edition of Leaders and Learners. We look forward to seeing you again soon. And until next time, bye.